Let's go ahead and move on to the fallout segment because this is important. This has touched such a nerve that there is overwhelming political pressure in Texas and across the nation of, hey, we need heads on a spike here in terms of who exactly is responsible for abandoning these children. And the governor has now found himself especially in a tough spot because he was on the dais praising law enforcement the day after, saying, we're so thankful to them. You know, Steve McCraw is telling us all of these lies. Well, now he's coming out and saying, look, I was misled. And just compare his tone to from the beginning, where he thanks law enforcement, to the way that he's talking about now, just showing the overwhelming political pressure, you know, back in my home state in order to find the people who are responsible and hold them accountable. Let's take a listen.
And let me emphasize something that I know you all know. But the reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse. The reason it was not worse is because law enforcement officials did what they do. They showed amazing courage by running toward gunfire for the singular purpose of trying to save lives. And it is a fact that because of their quick response, getting on the scene, being able to respond to the gunman and eliminate the gunman, they were able to save lives. Unfortunately, not enough.
Short answer, yes, I was misled. I am livid about what happened. I was on this very stage 2 days ago, and I was telling the public information that had been told to me in a room just a few yards behind where we're located right now. I wrote down hand notes in detail about what everybody in that room told me in sequential order about what happened. And when I came out here on this stage and told the public what happened, it was a recitation of what people in that room told me, whether it be law enforcement officials or non-law enforcement officials, whatever the case may be. And as everybody has learned, the information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate. And I'm absolutely livid about that.
Major change in tone there, Krystal. You know, the immediate thing, you know, being emotional there about law enforcement, now saying I'm absolutely livid. But listen, you know, it's nice to be livid, but what I want to know is what the hell are you going to do about it? And to be honest, this does not inspire confidence. The next move, let's put this up there on the screen, which is that the Justice Department is going to review the law enforcement response to the Uvalde mass shooting. Now, I mean, that sounds nice, but what do you see there on the bottom ticker, which is that we're going to do an entire story today about how the Justice Department is not going to charge the FBI agents who didn't just botch, but basically criminally covered up the Larry Nassar sexual abuse case. I mean, do we really have faith that the Justice Department is actually going to be able to give, you know, any justice to the families here? I think this has to come down to every political level, both Uvalde, but the ISD, the school, city council, along with the governor. I mean, frankly, Steve McCraw should be fired, the Texas head of Department Safety. I mean, he outright lied to Texas and to the American people about the school resource officer. So either he needs to be fired for not vetting information properly before he delivers that, or the person who gave him that needs to be fired. I mean, at every level, both the cover-up, the response. Also, I think every single one of these Border Patrol agents, have you not noticed, not one of those guys been interviewed yet on camera, and I think there's a reason for it, which is that—
pretty interesting to hear what they had to say.
So I can tell you, I tapped my network, I reached out to all the people that I know, and, you know, nobody is willing to really go on the record and tell me what's going on, but the skinny of it was essentially the contours of what has come out, which is that they got on the scene and they were like, what the hell is going on here? And after a while, they were like, you know what? This guy is a moron, screw him. And they stormed in there, you know, had to go get the key because they realized there had not been a single attempt at breaching the door. And they killed him within seconds of entering the door. And by the way, not a single one of them actually was killed. You know, they had a tactical shield, a ballistic shield, all of that had been on scene for well into the time that they had been there. And eventually they basically revolted against the incident commander. So again, I think the Border Patrol guys, frankly, they need to come out and they need to speak. The head of Border Patrol, I think this is a cover-up, frankly, by the administration. Also, I mean, the Biden administration declined that first day, Krystal, Karine Jean-Pierre, she declined to issue any call against law enforcement in their initial, even when it was well aware within the country.
I mean, they're so afraid of being tagged of like, oh, you're anti-cop. You got the Republican governor of Texas trashing law enforcement. Anyone who looks at this
far beyond politics.
This is way beyond.
Yeah.
But they're just so fearful of like, oh, what's the right going to say about this, that they can't even find the obvious correct answer that basically everyone in the country is thinking and feeling right now, with a couple of notable examples that we're going to get to shortly. But yeah, even the way that they framed this investigation is not confidence inspiring. They say in this article, the review, which is being undertaken at the request of Uvalde Mayor Don McLaughlin, is tasked with providing, quote, an independent account of law enforcement actions and responses that day, and to identify lessons learned and best practices to help first responders prepare for and respond to active shooter events. We don't need to, I mean, we know the best practices already. It's exactly what was laid out in that training manual. I mean, sadly, post-Columbine is part of what I'm going into my monologue as well. There's been a lot of money spent by Congress to fund research into what the best response is. Because in Columbine, there was a delay of about 20 minutes from the time that law enforcement arrived on the scene until when they actually entered the school. And that 20 minutes was considered shocking and unconscionable at the time. But also at the time, there was no fully developed protocol for this, so they were making it up on the fly. After that, there have been federal funds spent, hundreds of millions of dollars to train, to develop and disseminate this training. So we know we don't need the lessons learned. We need accountability. And unfortunately, the way that our laws are written and the way that the court has decided, law enforcement isn't actually under a duty to protect.
Yeah, I was just about to read that.
It's very unlikely that any of these people, I mean, the most accountability they may face is losing their job. But in terms of any sort of criminal negligence, I think it's highly, highly unlikely here.
People forget, the Justice Department ruled, the Supreme Court ruled in 2005 the police do not have a constitutional duty to protect anyone, which, really raises a lot of questions about the social contract whenever you're going to imbue somebody with an immense amount of power and with the ability to hold military-grade weapons and, automatic rifles and training and all of this qualified immunity that we grant them. I think that within the, established social contract is, if somebody's shooting up a school, you go in and try to kill that person. And I think that what also is going to be shown here is, these parents don't have recourse. You can't sue these cops for their lack of response. You can't do really anything. And the question now comes, what actual accountability can be done? I think the fact that this Uvalde ISD guy still has his job is insane. I mean, he should be immediately. It doesn't even, there's not a question about it. The city council, the mayor, they should be going in. Name the 3 cops who sat on their ass outside of this and basically fire them. I mean, you are well within your rights in order to do so. But a lot of what's happening here just reeks to me of a cover-up. And they're waiting for the American public and the media and everybody to move on so that they can issue their stupid little report about, oh, here's exactly what, listen, I mean, we have it's been a couple days. We have the broad contours of what happened.
Right.
The spirit of what happened. We have a minute by minute account. We don't need a 500-page timeline about what's happened. We need people to be fired, preferably, if possible, to be prosecuted under the full extent of the law. I mean, what's happened here is just an egregious, miscarriage, at least in the spirit of what justice is supposed to be about and about what these people are supposed to be doing.
Everything that takes time, I mean, these delaying tactics are so typical. I mean, even the political response here in Washington, we're going to go and we're going to try to work in a bipartisan manner. No, the public energy is there right now. The heat is on the issue right now. You know what you need to do. You know what kind of legislation would make a difference in terms of guns. You know what is broadly supported by the American public. We're going to talk about that shortly. And same with the response on the ground here in Texas. You know at this point where the major failures lie. Sure, we would like to know the whole story. I still have a lot of questions. I want to know where the freaking school resource officer was when he was supposed to be at the school and they lied, 4 different times to cover up what exactly happened there. There were basic lies too to try to cover their asses about how, he was the shooter was wearing body armor, which was meant, I think, to offer an excuse for why they weren't able to shoot and kill this guy to start with and why they were so fearful of engaging with him because they felt like he was, well, it turned out that wasn't true as well. So there are still a lot of questions here, but you're right. We know broadly where the mass failures lie. They lie with the head of that Uvalde School District Police Department, who clearly made the call, hey, we're going to sit on our hands for an hour and let kids bleed out on the classroom floor, try to, keep even Border Patrol, who are there saying, what are we doing? Like, why are we standing around here? Let's go in, trying even to prevent them from acting. We know that. We know where the lies came from the spokespeople here, from the leaders of the department. So the fact that any of these people still have their jobs, to me, is completely insane. The other piece we wanted to bring you is the president and the first lady did visit Uvalde to meet with families. We have a little bit of that we can show you. This is, for those of you who are just listening, this is the first lady laying a bouquet of flowers at the memorial there in front of the Robb Elementary School sign, along with, a lot of other flowers and pictures. You can see some other local community members walking there and just contemplating this, what is really something you will never be able to wrap your head around. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.